This is a public service announcement from your friends at the Traffic Authority. Hello, new Traffic Authority recruits. Congratulations on your forever employment here at the TA. As with all new staff, I'd like to first explain our organization's history in the hopes it will help you on your career journey. In 1912, Lester Wire, a police officer in Salt Lake City, had an idea that would forever alter the course of human existence. He crafted his mechanism, consisting of a wooden box on a pole housing two lights. Officer Wire and his cronies rejoiced in their newfound power, able to control the flow of traffic from the comfort of their dark, secluded booths. The device over time did evolve, adding a yellow warning, enabling yet another stark reminder of the authority that lurked in the shadows. Today, the Traffic Authority reigns supreme. Their intricate network of 4 series Durtec control and monitoring systems, each overseen by their temperate overseers, manipulate and execute the very essence of our road systems. Now, with inductance loops embedded beneath the asphalt, our team of watchful engineers can check on every move of vehicle traffic, feeding data back to the authority's all-seeing eye mainframe. The Traffic Authority's mission is not to ease congestion, but to control it. To watch over its drivers, to guide them, and if need be, brake them. We at the TA see transportation as just one of the many pawns in this grand game, subject to our whims and our will. Because who would know better than us, the TA, for it's in our name. And so, keep your eyes on the road while driving, and know our malevolent eyes will always be watching, ever vigilant, ever waiting. The ever-watchful presence of the Traffic Authority ensures that every journey is under their keen observation. Through innovative strategies and technology, the Traffic Authority shapes the future of transportation in our cities. As we evolve, so does our approach to managing the flow of humanity through our roadways. Would you like to know more?
Christopher Beckett gripped the MIL-DEF RK-12 laptop tighter, his knuckles white. Sweat beaded on his forehead, a cold contrast to the ever-present chill of his clinical environment. He wasn't supposed to be here. He wasn't supposed to have stumbled upon this hidden world, a world where traffic lights weren't automated systems, but instruments of a horrifying agenda he now was a part of. A province called the Traffic Authority. It all started innocently enough. A job fair, an unmarked metal box, a single sheet of paper. Now, Christopher was trapped, a cog in a sinister machine that orchestrated death from the shadows. The sound of the rotary phone clattered through the sterile silence of his quadrant. Christopher flinched, his heart hammering a frantic rhythm against his ribs. He reached for the phone while choking with dread. Without a word, he slammed the receiver down, the finality of the click echoing in the vast emptiness. Despair gnawed at him, a constant companion in this concrete tomb. His mind drifted back to that fateful day, the day he signed his unwitting contract with the devil. The MPA graduate, eager and ambitious, found himself drawn to the unassuming booth at a job fair. A single pen, a single sheet of paper, a single sentence that promised to change his life. But the lie was as thick as the dust that coated every surface here. He was now a pawn in a game driven solely on control, manipulation, and fear. And the flow of human lives were the pawns on this twisted chessboard. Their methods were barbaric. Each ordered impingement, as they called it, brought a twisted initiation for all newly hired. A blood oath sealed in silence and fear. Christopher shuddered, the memory a raw wound. He glanced at the grainy Panasonic monitor, the screen displaying the latest carnage caused by his trembling hands on the levers. A fiery inferno, mangled vehicles, the sickening screech of twisting metal. The weight of countless lives pressed down on him, a suffocating burden. A knock on the adjacent entryway startled him. It was Tom, one of the few confidants he had in this desolate place. Relief washed over Christopher momentarily, replaced by a surge of apprehension. Tom rarely ventured out during working hours. "Hey, Chris," Tom whispered, his voice tight. "I found something. Another corridor. This one leads..." He hesitated, a flicker of fear in his eyes. Well, somewhere else. Intrigue battled with caution within Christopher. The traffic authority thrived on secrecy, and venturing into uncharted territory was a gamble. But the gnawing hope for escape, for a way out of his nightmare, proved too strong to resist. He knew. They both knew that what potentially lay ahead of them could in fact shatter whatever fragile grip they still had left of their sanity. "Is anyone out there? Please advise. Hello? Wait, Tom. I think I've got a satellite link signal. This far down. I'm going with it." "Wait, what are you going to say?" "I'm going to lay it all out." "Okay, good. The more details, the better. Tell them who you are, where you come from, in the hopes it will help track us down." "Here goes nothing. CONUS, U.S., Oconus, Hawaii, Alaska, U.S. territory, U.S. Posse, unknown. Critical incident stress debriefing, DART needed ASAP. From ESF-01 Transportation. Please be advised, my name is Christopher Beckett, and if you are reading this, please contact IMAT EOC Emergency OPS. I am unable to provide exact location. Myself and an unknown number of individuals are internees. Below, I have provided daily accounts and background in the hopes that it will provide assistance in rescue. As I stated, my full name is Christopher J. Beckett. I have two parents, Jim and Amy, who are still alive and well, two older sisters, Jennifer and Jessica. I attended college as well as grad school, and I suppose that is oddly the catalyst for everything I'm about to tell you. You see, it was in the spring of 2006 when I had completed my degree obtaining an MPA, Masters of Public Administration, and with no job lined up in the public sector, I motivated myself to attend a job fair on campus. It was there amongst the various booths I noticed one in particular. I suppose it stuck out to me, simply because of how unassuming it was. It was without the common banner displays, fanfare, or representative manning it. A simple table with a metal box, which had an 8-inch slit on top. Adjacent to it lay a simple Bic ballpoint pen and a stack of writing paper. Accompanying this sat a letter which read, "Greetings. You have just taken your first step in the process of obtaining employment at Traffic Authority. The Traffic Authority coordinates and executes America's transference needs, serving the country's people and economy through efficient, sustainable, and equitable movement of people and goods. Through our systematic and targeted approach to traffic, we effectively manage the flow while ensuring reduction of the carbon footprint upon the nation." Not thinking much of it, I took a pen, grabbed a paper and wrote my name and contact info on it, finally inserting it into the metal box. It would be a few weeks later that I'd hear back about my strange submission. As to keep with the obscure nature of it all, it would come via a phone call by an unknown number at 3 a.m. I groggily located my phone on my nightstand and placed it up to my ear. A voice on the other end spoke. "Thank you for your submission of employment for the Traffic Authority. We would like to be the first to congratulate you. Your submission has been accepted." "Thank you." Click. And that's it. No directives, no additional info, and no interview process. Dumbfounded, I shrugged it off and continued on with my daily job grind. That is, until a few nights later when I'd gone to bed. The next morning I sluggishly would awake, but not in the comfort of my bed. Well, somewhere else, someplace so oddly unequivocal to anything remotely familiar to me. I found myself sitting upright in a chair. Then my eyes slowly came into focus, unveiling my new surroundings. In front of me was, well, a semblance of a workspace, presumably one pulled from, oddly, a 1980s office space. I then noticed my attire: blue coveralls, black work boots. My mind went into recovery mode. Was I dreaming? But soon enough, I'd come to understand my current circumstances was no dream but reality. I had seemingly been drugged, pulled from the comfort of my bed, and kidnapped. And now I'm here, working for traffic authority. I didn't have time to imagine what the job would be like. I suppose maybe something reliable but boring. Honestly, I had no inclination of what they did. If I had to imagine it, I'd see the day-to-day as someone who just sits in a cubicle all day, answering emails, putting together reports, chatting with fellow employees by the water cooler. But I was wrong. Very wrong. The traffic authority is not what it seems. Not what I could have imagined it to be as well. It's a dark and nefarious place, where we control all the traffic lights in the country, and as mundane as that might sound, it's not at all what it seems. For every lever we pull, button we press, has horrific implications. For the traffic authority has its own agenda, own twisted impetus of unimaginable extent. I am unsure of the true estimate of how many of us are currently down here. I surmise that meticulous detail has been spent in the mapping and construction of this organization's personnel structure and facility. You see here, after we are awakened, drugs wear off. Those who are now fellow employees and have, well, been here for God knows how long, greet us like nothing has happened. Maybe it's the routine of it all, or their way of just not dealing with it and all the annoying questions that surely would arise. Any the case, they then start our initial authorization, agreement, and certification of training. Thus begins what they call the start of our alignment. Subsequently, then mission-critical occupations, MCOs, are then broken down into conclaves. Soon upon, we are then dispersed into specific sectors dependent on need. Final assignment then is given to us, the new employee, to their relative uncoupled quadrant of station, based upon our overall vocation and locality. Although each quadrant has 8 to 10 employees at any given time, it is rarely, if ever, that you'd cross paths with anyone during operating hours. Our workstations are roughly a 30 to 40-minute walk from each other, via a meandering set of corridors and hallways, which would put the largest airport terminals to shame. It's when we arrive at our workstation that our first grid points are called down to us via the red rotary phone. But here's the rub. Every new employee's grid points, or as they call it, impingement, causes a fatal accident of that newbie hire's family member. As it has happened to all of us. When it occurs to that unfortunate newbie, we bite our lips and keep our heads down at our workstations. Now, I don't know if this act by the higher-ups is for pure amusement or for fear and control. Either way, it's disturbing. I'm intentionally omitting my impingement. I'm just not ready to talk about that yet. I suppose you're wondering with such secretiveness how I'm able to attempt to post this. Well, here's how. I'm currently typing on a MilDef RK12 sat-linked laptop. You see, Tom and I, a fellow employee here 2 years my senior in my quad, recently came across it during one of our unauthorized nighttime explorations of this oddly endless facility we work in. As improbable as it may seem, even with the many hours spent exploring, we yet have completely circumvented the entire facility. At any rate, after wandering through yet another unmapped sector, Tom came upon an entryway, gesturing to me to take a look. We came upon what we believed to be an annex at the time. And there, through the endless aisles of mill-grade Pelican cases, unmarked shipping containers, and bizarrely, an endless array of scrap telephone booths, we came across the computer. But proceeding on, as you may have noticed at the traffic authority, we orchestrate fatal traffic accidents. You're reading accurately. So if your thought on traffic accidents was that much of, if not all, are human error, well, I'm telling you it is not. There are a great deal of accidents daily we are responsible for. Cloaked by poor judgment, human error, and mechanical difficulties, our work mainly goes unnoticed. And we're not as detached to the horrible results as you may think. The higher-ups must have thought it yet another cruel joke to have had IT place grainy Panasonic TR930B CCTV monitors on site at each and every station. Yes, retro tech, along with everything else here. So as people's lives are ended and destroyed, we can do nothing to stop it. We're forced to watch it all play out via CCTV traffic cams through a shitbox monitor. As I made mention before, the orders come down from a red rotary phone, where a numbers station-like monotoned women's voice speaks. I can't say for any certainty if it's a pre-recorded tape or an actual live person on the other end. But she or it tells us a series of grid points relative to the intersection in question, followed by juncture and cycle. We never see the higher-ups and we never know their names. All of our attempts at communicating have been thwarted by an abrupt disconnect from the rotary phone if we ever attempt to communicate. It then is followed up by a subsequent letter via our pneumatic mail system. Here's the latest letter received. Letter received. It has come to our attention that all or some members of your quadrant have encroached upon their sworn duties here at the Traffic Authority. If you do not cease the aforementioned activity, a abstersion will be commenced against you. If the activity continues, we will immediately terminate your position. We will also seek any and all still living kin and deal with them accordingly. Hopefully this recourse is not necessary. We have our own interests to protect, and will vigorously do so. You will not receive another warning letter. Best regards, Traffic Authority. The facility where we work is located hundreds of feet underground at best estimate. We only know this because of the gantry chute, which provides us our provisions. It mainly dispenses our basic hygiene needs as well as sea rations, which have long expired. A few of us from the quad one night after hours calculated from the time the gantry is activated to when its door opens. None of us claimed to be any math whiz, but we deciphered roughly 368 FT give or take, the depth we are at. That would correlate with the fact that it's always cold, dark, and dingy here, as well as the usage of massive carbon dioxide scrubbers, which can be found throughout the facility. Oh, and if you haven't yet figured it out, employment is forever. Or till hell freezes over, whichever comes first. Hence, we're obviously not allowed to leave here, nor have the ability to do so. Furthermore, we're not permitted to have any contact with the outside world. So we work, sleep, and exist in this underground labyrinth. Sure, I want to escape, but the only potential exits thus far found are the gantry chute I previously made mention of, and a concrete and steel blast door spanning a 20-foot circumference. Okay, that's not much of an option. We're still exploring and still haven't given up on finding a viable exit. Anyways, I'm writing this in the hopes that someone will find it, that this posting will translate into a rescue, and that anyone will ultimately know what's going on here. Well, hi again. We've had a rough go of it as late. It appears that Sam, another employee here that I've built a strong, dare say, friendship with, if sure thing could exist here, had a more horrific than normal conclusion after receiving and implementing protocol on his grid points. Apparently, from what I gathered, it involved a pedestrian and a semi-truck carrying flammable cargo. Sam hasn't been the same since, and I'm beginning to think that he is intentionally ignoring me. Tom and I, after hours, made the 40-min trek to his workspace the other night, only to find him gone, and no one has seen him since. We're guessing he wandered off somewhere in the southeastern quadrant, which has yet to be explored by Tom and I. A few of us are planning a search tonight. It will be difficult. Many that have attempted to venture out this distance are never heard from again, lost in the endless corridors and annexes that make up the Traffic Authority. You may wonder where we sleep and shower. Well, every workspace has its own hygiene facility adjacent to it. It's a 8-10-foot white subway tile room, which has a showerhead, toilet, and sink. We are given one washcloth, a small monthly allowance of public goods brand shampoo, a bar of unmarked soap, toothpaste, disposable razor, etc. Sleeping arrangements are equally as dismal. A military surplus aluminum-framed nylon canvas cot, which can fold down. It's a tad better than just sleeping on the floor. As I lay here in this cot, I can't shake the feeling of being trapped, not just by the walls around me, but by the very reality of our existence in this place. The time as of right now is 15 hours. I've just finished up at my station. I'll give you a rough idea of my station and its surrounding decor. First, my station consists of a mid-century puke green metal office desk with 5 drawers. Accompanying its metal body is a veneer top. I'm guessing TA acquired them in surplus from the IRS or some other government entity when they all made the transition to cubicle. On my desk, I have a computer monitor with a 14-inch composite screen used in conjunction with our 200 series computers. They have been retrofitted to work with our specific network, which is odd, for the time and energy to do that makes zero practical sense. But what does make sense here? The monitor is black and has a large bezel, and it displays text and numbers relative to grid points. Accompanying this, of course, is a keyboard, and behind my desk, an analog display has the readout 70115E and July 2nd, 2023, 10:08 p.m. edit. I'm not quite sure of the meaning of it, but it changes with no common pattern or relative meaning to my work. I suppose the best way to describe the overall size of my quad is, well, it's roughly the size of your average high school. The walls are cement with various panels screwed about with many levers, buttons, and switches. Much like a nuclear facility control room, which typically are designed for function over ambience. The lighting in my quad is dimly lit with fluorescent ceiling panels. It's a horrible artificial lighting setup, casting a cold and clinical feel here. The dominant colors are gray, white, and celadon, which is a pale grayish, light yellowish shade of green. A perfect match contributing nicely to my sterile and impersonal space. The presence of the clock, phone, and computer monitor also reinforces this sense of being a utilitarian workspace. There are several other computers and workstations in the room, but they are all empty. The air in the room is filled with the hum of machinery and the soft glow of the electronic equipment. It's a dim and authoritative environment, and it only adds to the feeling of urgency while I work. Hey, so a lot has happened since last posting. I'm not quite sure how to explain all that's transpired in the past 24 hours, considering it stirred up a lot of new questions amongst myself and the other quad members. Not to mention that it's frankly disturbed many of us, myself included. Which is to say a lot, considering that, well, I didn't think things could get much worse or stranger here. After last night's cycle, a few of us made the trek from our various quads to the central gantry for a meetup. Initially, our intent was to find Sam, who is still missing. But plans, as they often do, change. Things deviated midway through our exploration of the southeastern quadrant. While meandering through a service hall, we stumbled across a very large, old, and seemingly abandoned library. The decor was something, with dark wooden shelves lining the walls. As we entered the room, we came across a worn wooden desk, positioned in the center. On it was a desktop computer. The monitor screen appeared to be on, giving a glowing, eerie white light, and wires snaked out from the back of the computer, disappearing down a dark hole in the floor. Chad suggested this to be a managerial workspace. Half joking, I gave him a half smile. Further, we went past the desk to come upon what appeared to be a maze of tall metal shelves that stretched seemingly into infinity in the distance. The shelves were crammed with books and seemingly random items that made no sense relative to what we do here. Tom made mention of how unsettling the room made him feel. I concurred. As we exchanged our thoughts, the air grew thick with uncertainty. It felt as if the library itself was listening to us. Each book seemed to hold untold stories, secrets that were just waiting to unfold. Feeling a mix of unease and curiosity, I reached for one of the nearest books, drawn by an inexplicable urge. The moment my fingers brushed against the cover, a cold shiver ran through me, as if the book itself was alive, holding its breath. As we explored, my attention was taken by a single light panel in the ceiling which was flickering. The others eventually made their way to my location. Chad asked what is it I was looking at. Haphazard lie, I pointed to what appeared to be an alcove, or some type of null space behind the shelves. Rolling up his sleeves, he stepped forward and attempted to push the large shelf out of the way, but it didn't budge. Eventually, all 4 of us joined in, but with the same result. Chad then noticed the obvious. The shelf was bolted to the ground. As canvassing continued down the endless row of shelves, we came to an offshoot entrance to our left. Our group made our way through the entrance and into another hallway, much different than any before. The hallway we entered was long, dimly lit with sporadic red fire sprinklers hanging from the ceiling. The walls appeared to be made of concrete. As we trekked on, we found several dark doorways along the hallway, all uniformly spaced and lit by a faint orange glow emanating from beneath the closed doors. Upon trying to open the doors, all were locked. The floor of the hall appeared to be made of gray tiles that receded into the darkness of the hallway. After what felt like forever, we came upon something odd. A door. But this door was well in the floor. Puzzled we and looked at each other confused. As we explored, Puzzled, we looked at each other confused. Chad then bent down and turned the door handle. The door hesitated, then opened to our dismay. What lay in front of us was a badly lit service entrance with a metal ladder bolted to the adjacent cement wall, which dropped substantially downward. With no volunteers, the four of us relied on rock, paper, scissors to select the first person down. Lo and behold, I was the unlucky one. With a quick glance and a mumbled last words, "Here goes nothing," I placed both knees on the ground, grabbed the first rung, and with one foot after the other, descended down. After a roughly 50-foot descent, I hit pay dirt. Chad was the second down, followed by everyone else. As my eyes scanned my new surroundings, I noticed the similarities. It was identical to the corridor we had just descended from. Eerily enough, including the service entrance in the floor we just had accessed. It was obvious on everyone's faces they too felt uncomfortable with our newfound entry point. I suggested that we first explore the current level we were on, and if time permits, then decide on descending further through the second door in the floor. It soon became apparent that the level we had found was in fact an exact duplicate of our floor. Its uncanny likeness made no sense. It wasn't long till we came upon our first quad. Quad 2, Chad's quad. Chad made mention that if his doppelganger is hard at work in the replica quad, he's going to lose it. We all concurred with that reaction, and Chad wasn't completely wrong. As we made way into what would be his workspace, it was there. A figure sat hunched over a workstation. Our eyes took aim at it. A mannequin, and not one you'd find at your local department store. More like that of a wax museum sat hunched at the workstation. I mean, it was exact down to the hair, eyes, and birthmark. As the three others stood around Chad's replicate, my eyes wandered upon a placard on the adjacent wall. Puzzled, we looked at each other confused. "Hey guys, what do you make out this?" They rushed over. Mike spoke. "Maybe this level was some kind of proof of concept." I replied, "Proof of what?" "A multi-million-dollar mock set that appears to be an exact down to the brick and mortar, button and lever." Chad interjects. "From what I gather, this is a fully functional facility. Why in the hell would they go to all this trouble, only to then build the exact structure on top of it? Not to mention we're what? A couple 100 feet underground." I follow up to the pile-up for good or bad. We're forgetting the door in the floor, which presumably means there's yet another level below this. Suddenly a voice came across the facility's internal comm system. A distorted voice crackles through the speakers, laced with static and a faint tremor. "Attention sub, level 203. Sectors 1 through 4. Internal temperature regulation malfunction detected. Non-essential personnel remain at designated stations. Repeat, remain frozen. Counterparts activated. Movement, not recommended. The mirrors, they see all." The voice cuts out abruptly, replaced by the unsettling hum of failing machinery. Is it our imagination, or does the air feel a degree colder? A low creaking sound begins to echo through the facility, like the slow, tortured groan of a building settling. The announcement then continues. Attention quads, counterparts, 290, 890 unravel. Correlative staff are waking. Please secure self in pod. Maintain current protocols. The message abruptly cuts out, leaving an unsettling silence punctuated only by the failing hum of machinery and our ragged breaths. The cryptic references to counterparts planted a seed of uneasiness, hinting at something monstrous disguised beneath this duplicate facade. Hey guys, I think that's our cue. Without haste, the four of us double-timed through the facility, back to the door, which now, of course, was in the ceiling. Our search for Sam that had turned into an exploration stirred up more questions than any answers. The encounter with the replica level and the chilling message left myself and the others on edge. We decided to regroup in my quadrant. What was happening? It began to occur to me that maybe we were rats in a maze, tasks only given to distract from a bigger agenda. An agenda we may never fully grasp. We need a plan, Chad said, his voice grim. We can't keep exploring blindly. Mike interrupted. We still need to find Sam. I interject. Sam's gone. As cold as that may sound, he's not our concern. We need to focus on what's in front of us. That's the only thing we have a slight resemblance of control over. Chad nodded. And what about those replica things? What do they mean by counterparts unraveling? I stared at the flickering screen of my monitor, the red grid points reminding me that the lives on the line aren't just our own. I don't know, but it can't be good. Maybe it was an archive, I mused. A place where they keep records. A flicker of hope ignited in our eyes. Records could hold information about the traffic authority, about their purpose, and perhaps even a way out. Deciding to prioritize the library over Sam was not without pushback, but eventually all came around. Our initial fact-finding in the library was disturbing and overwhelming to say the least. Rows of shelves, with nearly no visible end, made our search at times feel impossible. The four of us broke into pairs primarily for safety concerns, although we antiquated it to efficiency. After grabbing a stack of large hardcover untitled books, Chad and I dumped our first lot on a desk and began. Hey, Chris. I stopped what I was doing and walked over to him. What do you make of this? What the hell? I remarked, my voice soft. This is a handwritten log of impingements. You're telling me they have a handwritten account of every fatal crash? Chad responds. From the looks of things and the vastness of this library they have, well, everyone ever this facility has implemented. The weight of the handwritten logs pressed on all of us, each page a testament to the countless lives we had unwillingly taken. A disgust and a flicker of rebellion ignited within myself and the group. I glanced at Chad, his face pale. We need to show this to everyone, I whispered, a newfound determination hardening within my voice. They need to know the extent of this. We need to gather other quads, the ones we've found as of yet. Chad hesitated. Are you sure? It could get us killed. Maybe, I conceded, but wouldn't it be better to die fighting for something than living like this? Convinced, we decided to gather everyone in a central location, a large, unused maintenance room we had discovered on one of our previous explorations. It was a risky move, but the promise of exposing the traffic authority's dark secret was too strong to ignore. Word eventually did spread through the sterile corridors. The task of gathering others we knew about was not easy, considering the 40-minute walk between quads. By the time I had reached the maintenance room, a tense crowd had assembled, and workers from various quadrants, faces etched with exhaustion and fear, huddled together. I laid the log on a makeshift table, the worn leather cover stark against the grimy floor. This, I declared, my voice echoing in the vast space, is the record of our sins. Every life we've taken documented in cold, unforgiving detail. A murmur rippled through the crowd. Some gasped in horror, others simply stared at the log with a numb acceptance. A burly man named John stepped forward, his voice thick with anger. We knew it was bad, but not this bad, he growled. There must be thousands of names in here. I interrupted. No, John. Millions. This is just one volume of a vast amount found. Honestly, we don't truly grasp the magnitude of it all. Another voice chimed in, a woman named Jill, her eyes filled with despair. What are we going to do? They'll kill us if they find out we know how big this is. The room erupted in a dissonance of fear and uncertainty. Trying to take control, I belted out, "Hey, people, I am done with this thing. This existence. Alone, deep underground, and although our hands are unwilling, it does not make it just." Chad stands up. He's right. To hell with it. We have suffered at the hand of these unseen higher-ups for too long. I second Chad's newfound fire. There are things we have discovered that are horrifying, and I will not kill another innocent life for the purpose of sport to those that have condemned us. I'm not going to witness another newbie's impingement and sit idle by while they suffer. I know some of you may be suffice with the status quo, yet it is done in my eyes. It is done. Faintly I mutter, I want my life back. I want you all to have your lives back. So join with us, and let's bring down the TA. And so we fight back. The room erupted into disbelief and fury. Everyone's faces showed a mix of emotions, horror, despair, and a simmering rage. John's voice, however, cut through the noise. There has to be a way out of here, he boomed, his gaze flickering between the log and the metal door at the far end of the room. It was a door none of us had previously noticed before, possibly a potential escape route we hadn't known to even consider, or a trap. As fear mingled with hope, I stepped forward, urging everyone, we need to find out what lies behind that door. It might be our only chance. With a deep breath, we gathered our courage, steeling ourselves for what lay beyond. A nervous cough drew everyone's attention to a frail woman named Amanda, a longtime worker in Quad 7. There's something else in those books, she rasped. Something I've been trying to decipher from the numerics. Not all impingements correspond to our quads. If I'm understanding this correctly, there's a sizable number of grid impingements that were initiated from, well, these other quads. I interject. Well, that makes sense. We've yet to circumvent every and all sector. Amanda. Well, here's the thing. The quad numbers in question subtract. Tom stands up. You mean negative numerical quadrants? Amanda. Yes. I respond. Well, that makes sense. The group directs their confused gaze at me. Okay, I guess now is as good as any to tell. John blurts out, Chris, is there something you're not telling us? I clear my throat. Last night, a handful of us went searching for Sam. The group's eyes glare with anticipation. And while exploring the southeastern quad for Sam, we not only found these logs. Well, we found something else too. Something I still can't wrap my head around. John, well, we discovered a door in well in the floor. Amanda, a hatch? Did you go through it? Yes. We found a sub-level that exactly resembles our level. But there's more. When entering what would be Chad's quad, we found someone or something. Chad interrupts. They found, me. Well, not me at my desk. A lifelike mannequin of me. A replica. The name replica weighed heavy in the air, a chilling reference none of them fully understood. John blurted out, mannequin. I mean, what is that? Amanda chimed back. Have you ever considered this maybe an offshoot or some variant of the backrooms or liminal spaces? John shrugged, saying, liminal what now? Amanda then explained that amongst the handwritten logs, she had found cryptic entries mentioning a place beyond the facility, a labyrinthine network of endless corridors rumored to drive people mad. A collective shudder ran through the crowd. So my sister was obsessed with it, but as far as I know, the backrooms are a fictional concept that were first made mention on a 4chan thread. People commonly depicted as an extra-dimensional space containing impossibly large expanses of empty rooms accessed by no clipping out of reality in certain areas. Tom jumped in. No clipping? You like in a video game that has a glitch? Tom finally acknowledged, shaking his head. Anyhow, what if this is, well, that? I spoke up. From what I remember in the lore, there was never any mention of jobs, sadistic as ours may be. But jobs, or any labor for that matter, never were mentioned. Amanda came back. Yes, but as you said, that's lore, and this is reality, a shitty reality, but real as you and I know. Suddenly, the harsh crackle of the intercom pierced the charged silence. A distorted voice boomed, laced with static and a hint of panic. Attention all personnel. Unauthorized gathering detected in maintenance sector. Repeat, unauthorized gathering detected. Return to designated quadrants immediately. Failure to comply will result in termination. A rabbit hole decent into fan fiction would have to wait. The threat now had become prevalent and immediate, a stark reminder of the consequences of defiance. But the seed of rebellion had been sown. Looking around at the determined faces, I knew this wouldn't be the last stand. We had a choice to make: face potential termination or fight for a chance, however slim, at escaping the clutches of the traffic authority. I was a realist, and knew even if we were to stop the TA, making it to the surface and escaping was a distant dream, considering our imprisonment hundreds of feet below the surface. But airing such a reality check carried no value. Maybe, just maybe, the library still held more, possibly the key to shutting down this nightmare, as well as a way to end the traffic authority once and for all. I looked around the room. Folks, the way I see it, we have two choices. Each of us will have to decide whether to face whatever the TA has planned to do to us, or leave and venture out. Each person can walk through that anomaly, that door, and try our luck into the unknown. After a heated debate, the consensus was clear. We would choose the door and whatever fate it may entail. Our plan was simple: 2 hours. 2 hours to get whatever provisions we could and meet back at the maintenance room. Considering the 40 men back from my quad, I could not chance it, making the 2-hour time frame. Instead, I chose to head back to the library to gather up any other potential leads that could assist us. And so everyone went their separate ways to gain whatever they could. I, at a double-time pace, made the trek back to the library in the southeastern quadrant. I bursted through the library doors and dove into the stacks of books, the log clutched tightly in my hand. Frantically, I scanned the pages, searching for a weakness, a hidden protocol. Anything. Then I stumbled upon a single row of books, underlined, emergency protocols. Hope grew within me. This should hold some merit in assisting us. I desperately grabbed as many books as I could carry. Then the intercom crackled back to life, the distorted voice laced with a new monotone twang. Attention all personnel. Level 203 lockdown initiated. Repeat, Level 203 lockdown. All unauthorized personnel in maintenance sector report to designated re-education pods immediately. Failure to comply will result in termination with extreme prejudice. A cold dread washed over me. Re-education pods? What horrors awaited those who surrendered? The air crackled with a different kind of energy now. Fear, but also a steely resolve. I picked up the pace on my way back to the maintenance room. Fortunately, as I walked in, I noticed all had already made their way back. Chad looked up at me while he methodically packed his bag. Cutting it a bit close there, buddy. I gave a sigh of relief and resignation. Then John, the burly man from Quad 3, stepped forward, his voice surprisingly steady. Looks like we're out of time for any continuing philosophical discussions, he boomed. It's them or us. Who's with me? A chorus of determined shouts erupted from the crowd. Amanda, the frail woman with a glint of defiance in her eyes, piped up, "So we're really doing this? That door? What if it leads deeper into this nightmare?" As if in response, a low rumbling echoed through the room, the fluorescent lights flickering ominously. A creak was heard, then metal door at the far end of the room, the one none of us had noticed before opened. "That's ominous," I muttered. Chad, and a bit too on-kuh. With a deafening groan, the door further lurched open, revealing not a dark corridor, but a well-lit room with white walls and newly laid high-traffic carpet. A collective gasp filled the air. This wasn't some dusty maintenance hatch. It was to somewhere entirely unknown. The back rooms, the labyrinthine nightmare Amanda had mentioned, was it real, and had we been there all along? Or was it a doorway we could exploit? "The back rooms!" Amanda shrieked, her voice tinged with a mixture of terror and exhilaration. "It's a gamble, but it's our only chance." John hefted a heavy toolbox in his hand. "Let's go meet our destiny then. At least it won't involve killing innocents anymore." One by one, we filed through the doorway, a mixture of fear and hope etched on our faces. I, clutching the precious emergency protocol books, was the last one to enter. I casted a final glance at the sterile, now empty room, a silent goodbye to the life we were leaving behind. When I stumbled out on the other side, I found myself in a dimly lit hallway, the yellow wallpaper and buzzing fluorescent lights a horrifying echo of the facility. But there was something different here. A faint scent of mildew hung in the air, and a sense of unsettling silence permeated the space. I was potentially in the back rooms, a prisoner, no longer of the TA, but a now maybe a fugitive, with a newfound purpose. Our fight for freedom had just begun, and the real battleground now was this labyrinthine nightmare beyond anything all of us could have ever imagined. Our group was well stocked. We estimated our food lot could hold us for a month if we rationed. Water, although, was another beast altogether. We guessed that it would hold us for 2 weeks if we conserved. The mysterious door had led us down a path where rhythm or reason carried no chord or merit. Chad had devised a method, chalking entry and exit points as we went, and as of now, we had not intersected back to any. I still wasn't sure how we had gotten here, how a door could just appear, or was it there all along? The mind is a funny thing, when normalcy is replaced with, well, the latter. The hallways and rooms started to play off each other almost comically. I suppose the continual endlessness of it all began to have its way with us. I began to interpret it all to resemble a funhouse of types, playing games, tilting and tricking our equilibrium. After what felt like a day or two, it's impossible to gauge the passage of time down here. We came across something remarkable. Our group made an abrupt halt. As we looked ahead, our eyes came upon something amazing and yet disturbing. We found ourselves looking upon a vast space which resembled a town. But this town wasn't bathed in sunlight, far from it. It was entirely indoors, a sprawling labyrinth of interconnected roadways, shopping plazas, and office complexes. The sky was a vast, featureless white ceiling tile, stretching endlessly in all directions. The air, stale and unchanging, carried the faint scent of popcorn and ozone. The buildings themselves were a bizarre fusion of architectural styles. A towering Gothic cathedral stood incongruously next to a neon-drenched bowling alley. A quaint Parisian cafe shared a wall with a mirrored skyscraper that seemed to disappear endlessly into its own reflection. Everything was clean, sterile, and utterly devoid of people thus far. Mannequins, thankfully department store ones. Not the monstrosities discovered in the sublevel prior. Were posed eternally in the shopping store windows, their painted smiles a stark contrast to the unsettling silence. Eerie piped-in music, a mix of elevator jazz and forgotten nursery rhymes, echoed throughout the deserted corridors. Every few blocks, A lambent neon sign advertised a long-closed business. Wig Emporium. Everything must go. Grand reopening soon. Promises of a life that never was. A town that never boomed. Maybe an untrue attempt at a story of a town, which lacked any time-worn showings of inhabitants. And a hasty attempt of someone or something to replicate what their interpretation of a town may be. Both conclusions were equally troubling. The only sign of movement came from the occasional gurgle of unseen lights going on and off in the distance. I strained to hear anything else, a footstep, a cough, but there was nothing as of yet I could decipher. Just the unnerving hum of the distant music and the unsettling silence. As we ventured deeper, a sense of wrongness pressed down on all of us, a feeling that this environment was merely a facade, a thin veneer stretched taut over something far more sinister lurking beneath. We round a corner to find a single door ajar and what appeared to be a light within the building on, a potential promise of answers, or perhaps a deeper descent into this unsettling mystery of this pretend town. Our group reluctantly enters the open door to find ourselves in a dimly lit 1950s-style diner. But we weren't alone. Down the many booths sat a man. The man who appeared to be in his mid to late 50s, adorned a brown coverall, much like our own. He notices our presence, narrowing his eyes as he assesses our group. And to my surprise, seemingly not at all alarmed by our sudden presence. As we inch closer, an unsettling silence envelops the room, broken only by the eerie tune emanating from the jukebox. Pulling us deeper into the mystery of this forgotten place. With an unsettling calmness, the man gestures for us to come closer. Name's Rick, but most call me Duke. Our group awkwardly pauses our response, still dismayed with the situation we all found ourselves in. I hesitatingly step forward. I'm Chris. The man responds, Hi, Chris. I suppose you probably have a million questions. I shrug and nod. Well, I don't have all the answers, but maybe some. He looks beyond the group and calls out, Dorothy, heat up a pot. We've got some travelers. A woman peeks her head out from the kitchen. Hi, folks, I'll put a pot on. The man continues. Well, as I said, I don't have all the answers. Amanda in our group blurts out, What is this place? Duke veers his narrowing eyes towards her. Well, right now you're at Dorothy's. It's kind of a waypoint for most who seek, well, out. But the town, all this, he gestures with his hands. Your guess is as good as mine. Sure, I have my thoughts. But as you already must know, we aren't the conductors here. We, well, play. And we're not at all the principal players. I chime in. How did you come to be here? The man leans back and crosses his arms. Well, that's a bit of a pickle. You see outside, I was a yardmaster for Norfolk Southern. I interject. The rail company? Correct. And I decipher from the coveralls you all are wearing. You're with what? Public Works, sir. I chip in. Traffic. Okay, well that equates. So as I was saying, after 25 years with Norfolk, I received a letter claiming to be from some obscure rail competitor, boosting to be the next big thing, as it comes to locomotive engineers, dinky operators, hostlers, and signal and switch operators. Well, you get the point. Anyhow, they claim to be subsidized by the government, etc. Eastie, exclaiming boastful credentials. And well, the letter included an offer. It was an offer with an exorbitant salary bump if I were to sign with them. And who was this company? The man shuffles in the booth, then stiffens up. The Rail Authority. A collective gasp comes from our group. Although finality or certainty of any macro truth of this whole mess wasn't exactly clear as of yet, in the pits of our stomachs we all knew. We knew. There were no coincidences down here. only the illusions of coincidences. And as the man stated, yes, we were the marionettes. And as of now, we might did not know our puppeteer, or those who held the strings. The man smirked, hinting at something he knew, but we did not. Maybe yet another secret buried within these walls that may only lead to more and more uncertainty. And yes, more unanswered questions. He then gently places down a newspaper he had been reading. And as he did, I quickly glanced upon the print. The paper read as a hopscotch of articles and columns of various news of days long past. The man notices my glance. He mutters, "Ah yes, we'll get to that." He then continues. His words weaved a story of intrigue and heartache, drawing us into a tale that transcended our own. And with each word, the air thickened the mystery, capturing all of our attention, and cocooning us in the moment where past and present appear to collided, seemingly intertwining our fates. He then revealed a connection between us all. The man stands up. From what I understand, every individual here, in this underground labyrinth, has this in common. We all were sold a bill of goods on this authority position. Now you're what transit? I correct. Well, traffic. Traffic authority. Right, okay, well I'm rail. Dorothy here is port, and Rick, wherever he wandered off to, is transit. Amanda in our group comes forward. So what? We're all cogs in this machine to manipulate mass transit. It makes no sense. The man responds. Rationale will get you nowhere down here, and the moment you think you've achieved an ounce of understanding, some unforeseen event comes along and tramples that. We may be entwined in a story far greater than ourselves. Come with me, let me show you. Panic mingled with curiosity as we draw together and follow. Duke continues on as we follow. Have you considered the possibility that everything is not what it seems? I follow up. Specifically? Well, for instance, the sheer magnitude of this complex. How in the hell would this be built? Did you ever consider that? And if it was even possible, how without raising questions or media attention would they go about it? Surely this would be a standalone feat of mankind's engineering accomplishments. I thought about what he was saying. Surely I considered how oddly vast it all was, but honestly, never had contemplated the viability of constructing such an immense structure. The man leads us to what appears to be a service door. We enter. He then turns and speaks. What I'm about to tell you is an educated guess. It is up to you what you ultimately decide to do with it in the end. In 1977, at a convention in France, a speech was delivered by an obscure but prolific writer. A speech that gained no traction or attention at the time, but well rather was trivialized. The audience that day, made up of fellow writers and thought leaders of the time, laughed that man right off the stage that day. And what you wonder, of what accounted for the audience's reaction that day back in 1977. The man walks to an adjacent locker in the room and opens it. I found this early on in my tenure here. He pulls from the locker what appears to be a broken computer keyboard. Amanda blurts out, "Half of a keyboard." What does a broken keyboard have to do with all this? The man looks at her. Look closer. Amanda walks forward and examines the object. A loud gasp is heard from her. Then, what? Oh, no. She then proceeds to run out of the room. I, with caution and butterflies, a full blurt out, "Duke, what's going on here?" He steps towards me with the object. I look closer. It's what appears to be a broken keyboard from probably, if I had to guess, the late 1990s. But as my eyes scan the object, it becomes disturbingly apparent to me that not all is what it seems. The keyboard hadn't been broken in half, but rather it's missing. Half wasn't... It was, well, kinda still there. Duke slides his hand on down the keyboard, appearing now to behold its missing end, and the visible portion now appeared to be floating. I mutter out, "What is this?" Duke responds collectively. Let me finish my story of the laughed at writer. I hesitate, then shrug. Philip K. Dick. Tom from our group cuts in. He wrote The Man in the High Castle. Yes, amongst many others. Philip, after taking a dose of sodium pentothal, envisioned that our reality is well a programmable construct, and that we, well, are in that construct, within that simulation. I speak. Simulation theory? I've heard of it, but how does that correlate? Hear me out. The theory suggests that everything we know and experience is potentially derived from this emulated model. If you could imagine for a moment a desktop computer. Now visualize the home screen. Here one would find the drop-down menu, various file folders of the past, present, and current day. And yes, lastly, you'd find the recycling bin. John from our group utters, "So what? We're in the recycling bin." Duke follows up, "Not quite." Our group collectively gives an eye roll. Stay with me for a moment. I have come to see all this, where we are at, as a holding station of types. This keyboard has led me to this, and maybe we are in a fully rendered and partial rendered bay of the inanimate, and yes, animate. And I chime in. How do you explain the authority? Remember, this is all just what I tend to believe. I as of yet have not found anything definitive. And, well, the authority. I've given this a lot of thought. In the beginning, here. I, as most of you I'm sure, looked outward. I looked at my surroundings for answers. But when that gained little, if any, insight, I had only one other avenue. Myself. I figure people break down into two groups when they experience something well like this. You have group number one who sees it as it is, and slowly but ultimately, and, for good or bad, painfully, adapts. But group two, that's where it gets interesting. This group, well, you see, they consider the unsettling fact that they're not on the top of the food chain nor anywhere close. See, I liken it to an ant trying to understand in quantum physics. Simply, they don't, because they neurologically cannot. So keeping this analogy in mind, I began to focus not on the why, but rather the mundane or perpetual, not the shiny object and most obvious course, but in a matter of thinking, the sleight of hand. And well, this group, group two. I speak of experiences all this in a hyper-suspicious way. For them, the end result and potential of escape is, well, 50-50. Outcome could be good, outcome could be bad. But deep down, they feel that whatever happens, ultimately, they're on their own. So they wait, they buy their time, and seek insight in the unheeded. Then, and only then, when the moment is right, they strike. Understanding their waiting game has allowed for this one-off, this which has no swing and miss. Now you have to ask yourselves, what group are you in? Are you the kind that adapts, that sees only the surface? Or do you believe that chance, although nominal, is still chance? I digest as well as I can, Duke's introspection, then respond. Why the authority? Is it to keep us busy? To see how we'd respond? I've got it figured this way. I've had two separate folk tell me that there have been strangers around. Can't tell what they look like, 'cause they're staying in the shadows. Nobody's been injured as of yet, and that's what I think is the giveaway. It's called probing. You send in a group, very small, to check things out. Not to engage, but to evaluate. Evaluate the what's what and the who's who. If this is a sim or not, one thing's for sure, whoever they are, They're testing us. The strangers. As the majority of our group hopped stools and sipped on the coffee Dorothy had brewed, Tom, Duke, John, and I took up in a booth and began to concoct a plan. We considered all factors, the constants, and of course the idea for additional exploration, which we all concurred to be a potential red herring. Tom, Duke explained more on this stranger thing. How often is it that people claim to see them? What are they doing? Duke, okay, the strangers. Now I've only come across them once, and it was, well, here in this town, if you want to call it that. I had been making my daily rounds between held-up establishments. I chime in. Mind me asking, but how many people reside here? Duke, at best, guess 27, give or take. You see, people sometimes go about getting this thought in their head to venture out, sometimes alone, sometimes in a group. We don't see them again, or people just straight up vanish. I interject. Vanish how? I really don't have any other way of explaining it. They're just gone. John, gone that impossible. Duke jumps back. You'll find yourself in mid-conversation, and just for a split second, you'll take your eyes off them. Glance away, and when you rear your head back, they'll be gone. Duke. John, right? John nods. Duke continues. And what is normal down here? Get rid of any semblance you still may have of normalcy. Folks, it won't fare you down here. Anyhow, short answer, we lose people and gain people, constantly. Head counts are tricky. After Duke's depressing connotation, I had to ask myself, did we stand a chance? Could we escape something we still didn't completely understand? Furthermore, and more importantly, would, or rather could we ever be capable of understanding? I decided it necessary to compartmentalize any and all open questions about this mad place. In not doing such detached allocation, this place would surely make me crack. For here in this drug-induced fever dream funhouse of types, if I were to lose it, well, that would be it. Devising a plan wouldn't be easy, and executing that plan, with unequatable binomial factors, well, it didn't compute. We inventoried our resources, which wasn't much. As mentioned, John and 3 others would be our eyes. Amanda, Dorothy, and a few others would be the hook. And Tom, myself, and Duke would be the snag. It was simple. Our only true connection to whatever it be in control were these strangers, and taking one might be a straight line to well recycling, if you believe such a thing. Or our chance. With our plan set, we geared up, each of us acutely aware of the risks ahead. Amanda looked back at the others, her anxiety palpable. Dorothy adjusted her backpack, trying to mask her fear. We were stepping into yet another unknown, driven by a singular purpose, to confront whoever was pulling the strings. We slipped into the shadowy alley, hearts pounding as we moved cautiously. We stepped into a dark alley. The tension was palpable as Duke, John, Tom, and Amanda clustered together, each face a canvas of urgency and worry. The flickering light from a nearby street lamp created an eerie ambiance, casting shadows that seemed to dance with malicious intent. We were not alone. The sensation of being watched crept over us, heightening every instinct. We need to split up and keep a low profile, Duke whispered, his voice barely audible above the distant sounds of the city. John's eyes darted around, scanning for any sign of danger. And if we don't come back? He questioned, uncertainty lacing his tone. Duke's gaze hardened, a resolve shining through his fear. Then we'll know they found us first. The dim glow of a flickering streetlight did little to reassure us. Every sound felt amplified in the stillness. We had to stay alert, knowing that even the slightest mistake could expose us. As we reached the end of the alley, a dark figure emerged, shrouded in shadows. My heart raced. We couldn't afford to make a sound. A silent exchange passed between us. I nodded to the team, signaling it was time to confront this unknown threat. The figure stepped into the light, surprise etched across their face at our sudden appearance. Time seemed to freeze as John and the stranger locked eyes, each assessing the other, unsure of what would happen next. John blurted out, "Sam." To our shock, the figure raised their hands in a gesture of peace, signaling they meant no harm. It was Sam. How in the hell after all this time could it be him? He had thought to be lost or dead in the southeastern quadrant. John slowly lowered his flashlight, cautious yet intrigued, while Amanda and Dorothy stood behind him, their eyes filled with a blend of curiosity and apprehension. Sam began speaking earnestly, pointing to a small, worn-out notebook he clutched tightly. "Chris, it's so good to see you. How are you here?" "Sam, I'd ask the same. What happened to you?" He then proceeded to look down to his notebook. Sam speaks, his voice weary and tired. "Chris, can I speak to you in private?" I awkwardly respond, Sure. "Sam, you got it. Let's step over here." We walk a bit down the alley and turn a corner. I starred. "What happened to you, man? We searched everywhere. Actually, come time think of it. Oddly, you're what ultimately led us here." Sam, "I'm sorry, man. I'm sorry." His face showing anguish and potential guilt. "Do you recall my last impingement?" I hesitate, then respond, "Yeah, you flipped out." Sam, "Well, there was a reason. I thought I was losing my mind. It made no sense." I follow squarely. "Sam, what made no sense? What are you trying to tell me? Who was the impingement on?" And as the words flowed from his lips to the air between, it was as if time stood still. My peripheral vanished, balance lost, and a figurative gut punch brought me to my knees. "Chris, the impingement was on you." Sam helped me to my feet. Focusing back to him, I forcibly mutter, "How? What? It makes no sense." Sam lowers his head while raising his hands. It was apparent this wrench weighed heavy on him. He appeared defeated and on the brink of giving up. For his besetting avowal had already begun its toll upon me as well. It wrenched out what little understanding or hope I still may have had. And any understanding of this mad place was, well, soiled. And yet I couldn't help but think back to Duke's warning, proclaiming so emphatically that our attempt to understand or find any semblance of normalcy would carry little merit. Thus, then, we were for surely the ants in this mad equation, and that so-called quantum physics exam allegory was not going well. So what to do with an enemy? Our imprisoner that seemingly was always 2, maybe 3, maybe more steps ahead. Where we were playing checkers, it was, well, playing chess and Sudoku, not to mention us, all utterly at the same time. It was now clear to me that Duke knew more than he let on, and a reckoning was now top of my agenda. With determination hardening in my chest, I vowed to uncover the secrets that lay hidden in the shadows. Together, we would seek out the truth and navigate the treacherous maze that lay before us.